London Uncovered. As we are moving on to a new episode, and today we are talking about the significance of 21st March. And yes, 21st March is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination and also the World Down Syndrome Day. The International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination is observed annually, for on this day, the police in Sharpeville, South Africa, opened fire and killed 69 people at a peaceful demonstration against apartheid, passed laws in 1960s. This year, we have a new theme, Youth Standing Up Against Racism. It engages through #FightRacism, which aims to foster a global culture of tolerance, equality, and anti-discrimination. It also calls on each and every one of us to stand up against racial prejudice and intolerant attitudes. 21st March is also the World Down Syndrome Day, a global awareness day which has been officially observed by the United States since 2012. On this day, people with Down syndrome and those who live and work with them throughout the world organize and participate in activities and events to raise public awareness and create a single global voice advocating for the rights, inclusion, and well-being of people with Down syndrome. Edna Masmila, a poet, in her poem Heaven's Very Special Child, says very beautifully, "A meeting was held quite far from earth. It was time again for another birth. Said the angels to the Lord above, this special child will need much love. Said the angels to the Lord above, this child will need much love. Her progress may be very slow, accomplishment may not show. And she'll require extra care from the folks she meets down there. She may not run or laugh or play. Her thoughts may seem quite far away. So many times she'll be labeled different, helpless, and disabled. So let's be careful where she's sent. We want her life to be content. Lord, please find the parents who will do a special job for her. They will not realize right away the leading role they asked to play. But with this child sent from above comes stronger faith and richer love. And soon they'll know the privilege given in caring for the gift from heaven. Their precious child so meek and mild is heaven's very special child." And let's see and go and meet Charles and Margaret and see what they have to say. We are back with Charles once again. And let's see what Charles has to say about his video games. Good afternoon, Charles.
Sanjay?
Tell us about your video games.
Well, they're sort of personal. I don't really like to tell.
So tell us about all those games you know chronologically.
Well, chronologically, you can look at any particular game.
Like?
Well, let's say for James Bond, I'd say it would be the one with Sean Connery, which would be From Russia with Love. And then Goldfinger. And it goes in that same year of that. Actually, goes Metal Gear Solid 3, which is 1964, of course.
Charles, tell us, who has been your greatest Bond villains?
Well, there hasn't been any favourite in particular, really. Well, to tell you the truth, I really don't like the idea of a villain, actually, in mind.
But who has been the most memorable?
So far, out of those that have died, which are just the actors that have died that have played. One was Richard Kiel, who did play Jaws. And the other was what did you call him? There were three Bond villains, and the actors that have played them have died. Throughout the years, have died. But in James Bond, it's the same thing in Star Wars. That was Christopher Lee.
What about Christopher Lee, Charles?
That was one of them. One of the three.
Okay.
And then there was, for a Star Wars perspective to a James Bond perspective, it's still the actor Christopher Lee.
Charles, tell us something interesting facts about history.
Well, I don't know that much about history, just all that I've really have learned throughout the course of certain films and games, that's the sort of thing.
So tell us some high points about it.
Well, let's see, there's, in the US, there was, of course, slavery, the American Civil War, not just slavery, but also the events of the film of Gone with the Wind, as well as, which resulted in slavery, and from there to the American Civil War, World War I, World War II, 1945, which is Hiroshima, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and politics in the 1970s, from the 1960s to the 1970s. And I think before in sort of the year of 1960, just after Hiroshima, we have, and that was in 1945, of course. We also have, just after that, in the 1960s, we do have the Cuban Missile Crisis, but a year before then, a year after then, 1963, we had the Well, throughout the period of those first years that I mentioned, we did have the plan of the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, and of course the assassination of for the course of the 1960s, which is 1963, which was the second James Bond film. In 1963, we had a second assassination of a U.S. president. Right into the Cuban Missile Crisis a year earlier. And then in 1973, we had politics and all through that period in Washington. And then
So, Charles, tell us something about the current productions.
well, let's see. Throughout the years, many years, right up to this year, 2021, all the famous people that have died. Bernard Lee, Desmond Llewellyn, Christopher Lee, Richard Keel, Sean Connery, Roger Moore, Desmond Llewellyn, Christopher Walken, and Roger Moore and Sean Connery. And of course we have other actors like Joel C. Scott and Bob Hoskins. And Leslie Nielsen, Tom Busley, Robin Williams. Many people, famous actors, throughout the years to this year have died. So I think it would be a good idea to have a memorial service for each one individually.
And why is that, Charles?
Well, let's say I think by up to this year, I think now would be the time to do so.
I see.
And cut.
And today, we are back with Margaret. And we are going to ask Margaret what it means to take care of Charles. Good evening, Margaret.
Good evening, Sanjay. How are you today?
I'm fine, Margaret.
Good.
Tell us about child's Down syndrome.
Well, with Down syndrome, there are several levels, and a child can be very seriously disabled, or they can have quite a full life, and with the proper training, they will be able to lead almost a full normal life.
Tell us, what were your fears when you received the diagnosis?
Well, our first fear was what the future would be for him and how easily he would cope. But from the start, Charles showed that he was interested in lifting his head, looking, seeing what was around him from day one. The doctor we had was very good. He told us that the worst case scenario would have been that, no, there wasn't a worst case scenario, sorry. He said that he could live full life and that children with Down syndrome were now living to a ripe old age, really. And their intelligence would be generally that of a 12-year-old, which is probably about right.
Margaret, tell us, what is speech therapy and why is it important?
Well, from the start, I took Charles to a speech therapist, and she helped me to use very simple things like a doll's house and the family going in and out of the doll's house and getting Charles to talk about these things. And very, very quickly, I noticed that his actual conversation improved quite a lot. Also, he was very lucky because his pronunciation and his ability to speak was quite good. He didn't really have speech, he didn't really need serious speech therapy.
Margaret, tell us, what is physical therapy and why is it important?
Well, physical therapy is very good because when a baby is born, he can be very floppy. Charles crawled around, was very interested, and I was very lucky. My mother came to stay with me and she spent many hours using and getting him to use his legs, and this was from, a month old, and I believe that really helped him quite a lot.
Margaret, tell us, do you feel like support groups or parenting groups are helpful?
Yes, I think that one should get in touch with any of the support groups. The Down Syndrome Association has very helpful groups going. Charles joined the Down to Earth group and he went there on Sunday mornings, and he very quickly learned how to go there by himself. He learned how to travel after a course at Westminster College on, it's so long ago now, on independent living. And they were very, very good. And he became very independent. He could use the underground without any problem. He could very, very frequently in those days, I used to worry a lot because he would disappear and no idea. So several times we called the police and he was found either down on the embankment or somewhere else. But he once or twice called a cab and luckily happened to have money in his pocket, so was able to come home again.
Margaret, tell us, are there particular elements of parenting stressful?
Well, yes, because Charles, I won't say Down syndrome children usually, but Charles can be very stubborn. And I was warned about this when he was very small by a friend that met me. He said, children at the age of 6 or 7 or even 8 for Down syndrome can be very cute. He said, but when they're an adult of 30, it's not so cute. So being strict with them and ensuring that they, help out and do things. You have to be quite strict. You have to, like any child, they can be very demanding in the sense that they won't do what you ask them, and they can hold out. They can hold out against you for as long as your patience will take it, and that's a difficult thing.
So, Margaret, what advice do you have for newly parents diagnosed?
Well, I suppose new parents shouldn't really feel that this is the end. I know that I've seen Down syndrome children that have been very, very disabled, and the parents have really had a lot of trouble there. But generally now, with all the help that's available, it can be rewarding, especially, and they can be very loving, and they can be very understanding, and they like to get along with other people, even if sometimes he doesn't want to get along with me, but that's part and parcel of having difficult teenagers, really.
Margaret, that's been amazing. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, and not to give in. Look for help. That's what I would say. Look for help.
Thank you, Margaret.
Okay.
As we come to the end of this episode, and we've been talking about the significance of 21st March. And here, in front of the statue of Nelson Mandela, it reminds me of the poem when he was in prison, and this poem inspired him to deal with everyday life. And it goes like this: out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I've never winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and it, the menace of the years, finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And yes, we are the masters of our fate, and we are the captains of our soul.